Madam President.
A bill to lift the U.S. government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling is heading to President Joe Biden's desk after the Senate voted to pass the bipartisan deal late Thursday night and avert what would have been the country's first ever default.
The yeas are 63, the nays are 36. The 60-vote threshold having been achieved, the bill is passed.
Nearly all Democrats and some Republicans in the Senate approved the bill, which had been passed by the House the day before. Lawmakers have been racing against the clock following months of partisan bickering. The U.S. Treasury had warned it would run out of funds starting June the 5th if Congress failed to act by then. In a statement, Biden said he would sign the bill into law as soon as possible, adding, quote, "This bipartisan agreement is a big win for our economy and the American people." Still, it was a bitter victory, and both sides took swipes at the other following the vote. After steering the legislation through, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer blamed his Republican colleagues for pushing the country to the brink of a historic debt default.
Default was the giant sword hanging over America's head. But because of the good work of President Biden, as well as Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate, we are not defaulting.
While Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell tweeted, "Tonight the Senate voted to avoid default and begin to curb Washington Democrats' addiction to reckless spending." With this piece of legislation, the statutory limits on federal borrowing will be suspended until January the 1st, 2025. Unlike most other developed countries, the United States limits the amount of debt the government can borrow, regardless of any spending allocated by the legislature.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Thursday was greeted by Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo ahead of the Shangri-La Dialogue, a security meeting which attracts top defense officials, senior military officers, diplomats, weapons makers, and security analysts from around the globe.
It is truly an honor to be here.
But tensions between the United States and China are expected to loom over Asia's top security meeting, as China has declined a bilateral meeting between the superpowers' defense chiefs. The event, which takes place June 2nd through 4th in Singapore, will consist of more than 600 delegates from 49 countries. Yet the Pentagon confirmed Monday that China's new defense minister Li Shangfu, who met with his Singaporean counterpart Ong Eng Hen Thursday for talks, has declined to meet with the Defense Secretary Austin, blaming the U.S. for current difficulties between the two militaries. In response to a query at a news conference, China's defense ministry spokesperson added, quote, "On the one hand, the U.S. keeps saying that it wants to strengthen communication, but on the other hand, it ignores China's concerns and artificially creates obstacles, seriously undermining the mutual trust between the two militaries." Meanwhile, Austin, speaking in Tokyo on Thursday, called it unfortunate that there would be no planned meeting. Russia's war in Ukraine, tensions between China and Taiwan, and North Korea's weapons programs will also be high on the agenda of many delegates at the dialogue, according to analysts. However, no Russian or North Korean government delegates will attend.
We're seeing proliferating global challenges, from Russia's aggression and brutality in Europe, to our competition with China, and a whole hell of a lot in between. From growing instability to food insecurity to natural disasters, all of which are being made worse by the existential threat of climate change. I don't hear many of my friends anymore saying there's no climate change. We're finally figuring it out. No matter what changes or challenges come, your character, your moral clarity, your capabilities must never waver. Again, not hyperbole. The nation needs you, genuinely needs you. Our world stands at an inflection point. Remember what I said? Putin was certain that NATO would crack, that they would not stand together. They put 40 nations together. The United States has rallied the world to stand strong with Ukraine, defend the values that the American people hold so dear: freedom, sovereignty, democracy, simple dignity. NATO is more energized and more united than it's been in decades. It's now even stronger with the accession of our newest ally, Finland, and soon Sweden. The alliance as soon as possible. It will happen. I promise you.
Залунала тривога.
The grieving husband of a woman killed during Russian missile strikes on Kyiv overnight into Thursday, saying that they had tried to get to their local bomb shelter during the attacks, but no one could open the door.
І відкривав, вони стукали там так.
There were women and children trying to get in, he says, when debris from a missile fell around them.
Може хтось відкриє. Поки я сюди.
Authorities say several people were killed in the incident, including a young girl and her mother, the 18th such attack by Russia on the city since the start of May. Russia has increased its missile and drone attacks on Kyiv in recent weeks ahead of the expected counteroffensive from Ukrainian forces. In this attack, the Ukrainian military says Russia used 10 missiles and all of them were shot down, but the city's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, says a fragment caused the deaths.
We have weeks long, every day, the Russians send their kamikaze drone and missiles to our hometown, and a lot of people killed, a lot of buildings destroyed. We have a big part of people who have an injury, and yes, of course, people very angry. People very angry. It's not the war; it's genocide against Ukraine, against Ukrainian people from Russia.
Russia has accused Ukraine's forces of increasing their own shelling on border regions in recent weeks, including wounding 8 people Thursday. Meanwhile, as fighting continues in eastern Ukraine, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of Russia's Wagner Group mercenary organization, says his fighters will finally leave the ruins of the city of Bakhmut on June 5th after handing control of it to Russian government troops. This video was taken during nighttime training drills. Pullout began May 25th and was originally slated for completion by June 1st. Prigozhin says the mercenaries will rest for about a month. He also continued his constant criticism of Russia's military brass, saying that his forces shouldn't have to operate alongside what he called clowns, who turn people into meat.